Greece. Greece had always been on my top list of places to see since I had done Greek history in college. However, the fact is that though we might plan, it is a divine power that executes. I got a chance to visit Greece only when I was well past 80. Even this was totally due to the kindness of my daughter in law, who insisted that she would take me on a 2-day trip to Greece. Since it was summer, everyone warned me that it would be really hot and miserable. But again, due to divine intervention, we enjoyed perfect weather of 22 degrees Celsius during our stay. Athens. Of course, our first stop was Athens, my dream city when I was in college. I used to live the life of those twin city-states of Athens and Sparta and longed to visit them. Now at last I got the chance. We reached rather late, but as the plane landed, I noticed how perfectly Athens was sheltered by hills surrounding it, which provided a perfect protection in ancient days. It looked as if she was held in the loving arms of the hills. Of course, the outstanding landmark was the iconic Parthenon. The city is named after the Greek goddess Athena, daughter of Zeus, the goddess of wisdom, warfare, and crafts. Athens has a continuous history spanning over 5,000 years, which makes it the next most ancient city after Varanasi. It was a powerful city-state, along with Sparta. Modern democratic ideas were taught to the West by Athens. These ideas influenced the Roman world, and from there it came down to us. She came to her full flowering in the 5th century under Pericles. The greatest thinkers and philosophers of the ancient world, like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, were from this city. This was the golden age of Athens in which philosophy, art, and architecture flourished. However, it must be noted that Aristotle said that democracy is the rule of the rabble. Actually, Western culture has its roots in Athenian culture. After that, she had a decline until the modern age, when she became the capital of Greece. We arrived in the city rather late, so we had no time to go anywhere. We ventured out for dinner in a small little cafe run by a Greek couple. The man was out drinking and the lady gave us some delicious food. One thing about Greek food is that though it is very tasty, it is really greasy. Everything is simply soaked in olive oil and sprinkled with their unique goat cheese called feta. I quite like olive oil, so for the first couple of days, I gorged on everything. Of course, I had to pay a bitter price for this. My stomach refused to cope with so much of grease, Grease. Of course, next day, bright and early, we set off for the most important tourist attraction, the Acropolis, which is a World Heritage Site, perched on a hill, dominating the surroundings. It was very close to our hotel, so we just walked to the foot of the hill, but had to go round to where the tickets were being sold. We were not allowed to climb the hill as we liked. It had to be with a guide, and they never allowed more than 30 people to go up at any one time. This was a great thing since it kept the place free of crowds. I wish we would follow this rule in the ancient sites of Bharat. It was not such a steep climb and the weather was rather good, so I found no problem clambering up. There was a stunning view of the city from the top, but of course everyone made a beeline to the Parthenon. The Parthenon was built between 447 and 438 BC as a temple dedicated to the goddess Athena Parthenon. The word Parthenos meant maiden, girl, or virgin, unmarried woman. I could imagine how glorious it must have been in its heyday, even though it was in ruins now. The temple's great size and lavish use of white marble was intended to show off the city's power and wealth at the height of its empire under its great statesman Pericles. They had the most famous sculptor of all antiquity, known as Phidias. He is best known as the artistic director of the Athenian building program, including the sculptures and the colossal gold and ivory statue of Athena Parthenos that stood inside the magnificent building. The Parthenon has had a long and complex history. The building was altered and the sculptures were damaged over the course of the centuries. It was built 2,500 years ago as a temple dedicated to Athena, as has been said. Around 500 AD, it was converted into a Christian church, the Church of the Virgin Mary of Athens, and remained so for 1,000 years. At this time, the whole of the middle section of the east pediment was removed, destroying a dozen statues. Some parts were deliberately defaced. In the early 1460s, Greece was conquered by the Ottoman Empire, and the building became a mosque. When Athens was under siege by the Venetians in 1687, the place became a gunpowder store. A huge explosion blew off the roof and destroyed most of the remaining sculptures. What we see today is the sad ruins of that once glorious structure. Even this had been cordoned off, so we couldn't go inside because they were renovating it. In any case, there was nothing much to see inside, since it had been totally denuded of all its precious artifacts during the course of time. I felt very sad when I thought of how these religions who profess to love God still have the heart to destroy such beautiful expressions of the love of God in other religions. We in India have suffered most from the desecration of our temples, which are standing ovations to the greatness of our culture. Our libraries, our monuments, and our temples have been pillaged by Abrahamic cultures exactly as they did to this wonderful shrine. Will the world ever change, I wonder? We also went to the museum, which houses a lot of fantastic marble statues of the gods and goddesses, as well as the Greek heroes. Another beautiful place we went to in Athens was a hill called Mount Lysabetis. This is the highest point in Athens, standing 278 meters high. It offers a fantastic panoramic view of the city. We went by a funicular railway which goes through a tunnel with rails. It's almost perpendicular and you can get a bit perturbed. However, the view from the top is spectacular. We could see the whole of Athens in the light of the setting sun as it slowly sank into the arms of the surrounding hills. It was quite a thrilling scene. It was full moon day also, and so I ran to the east to see the rising moon, but she was quite reluctant to come out. We had to wait till well past 8 p.m. for her to come up in all her glory. She was huge as she came up slowly over the eastern horizon. She hung there like the oscillating pendant of an